Prague announces itself before you're ready for it. You turn a corner in the old town, and suddenly there are Gothic spires and baroque domes stacked against the sky like something from an illuminated manuscript. This is Czechia's capital, compact, absurdly photogenic, and still somehow underpriced for what you get. But here's the thing that pulled us beyond the city limits. About an hour east of Prague, in a town called Kutná Hora, there's a small chapel decorated entirely with human bones. 40,000 skeletons arranged into chandeliers, garlands, even a family coat of arms. And the whole thing traces back to a single handful of dirt carried home from Jerusalem 8 centuries ago. We're going to find it. But first, Prague itself has a lot to show you. The city sits on the Vltava river in the heart of Bohemia, and it stacks more architectural eras into a few walkable square kilometres than most European capitals manage across their entire footprint. Gothic, Renaissance, Baroque, Art Nouveau, Brutalist, they're all here, layered on top of each other like geological strata. Beer is cheaper than water in most restaurants. The food scene has become quietly very good. And because the city wasn't heavily bombed in World War II, what you see is largely original, not reconstructed. You could spend a week here and still miss things, but 3 or 4 days hits the sweet spot. Let's start where most people do. The natural beginning is Stare Mestskie na Městí, Old Town Square. The space opens up suddenly from narrow medieval streets, and the spale catches you off guard. The twin Gothic spires of the Church of Our Lady Before Teen dominate one side. The Old Town Hall anchors the other. On the hall's southern face, the Prague astronomical clock has been marking the hours since 1410, the oldest working astronomical clock in the world. Every hour on the hour, 12 mechanical apostles parade past 2 small windows above the dial, while a skeleton rings a bell. It's touristy, absolutely. The crowd gathers 10 minutes early, phones raised, but 600 years of continuous engineering earns its moment. Underneath the clock, you can descend into the medieval underground for about 150 crowns, where 12th century rooms reveal how much the street level has risen over the centuries. The square fills up by mid-morning, so coming early gives you both space and better light. From here, head north. A 5-minute walk from the square brings you into Žižkov, Prague's Jewish quarter. The neighborhood holds 6 historic synagogues and the old Jewish cemetery, where 12,000 tombstones lean against each other in a space barely larger than a city block. The dead were buried in layers, up to 12 deep over 3 centuries, because the community wasn't permitted to expand the grounds. Standing in that small space surrounded by centuries of crowded headstones, something about the scale of time and loss becomes quietly physical. A combined ticket covering most of the synagogues and the cemetery runs about 350 crowns, roughly $15. The Pinkas synagogue is particularly affecting. Its interior walls are hand-inscribed with the names of 77,297 Czech and Moravian Jews killed during the Holocaust. The names stretch from floor to ceiling in every room. The Spanish synagogue, by contrast, is all ornate Moorish revival gold and colour, an unexpected burst of beauty. Allow 90 minutes here at minimum. From Žižkov, a short walk south and west brings you to Charles Bridge, the postcard, the icon, the one everyone comes for. 30 Baroque statues lining a 14th century stone bridge over the Vltava, the castle complex rising behind in full Gothic theatre. Mid-afternoon, it's a slow-moving river of tourists, portrait artists and souvenir sellers. The bridge is still worth crossing, but here's what changes everything. Come at dawn. 6:30 on a summer morning, the bridge is nearly empty. Mist sits on the water. The statues throw long shadows across the flagstones. You can hear your own footsteps. It takes about 10 minutes to walk end to end, and in that early light, every step lands. Touch the bronze plaque on the statue of St. John of Nepomuc. Tradition says it brings good luck, and the metal has been polished gold by millions of hands. The bridge deposits you directly into Malá Strana, the lesser town. Malá Strana runs at a completely different tempo. The streets narrow, the palate warms. Terracotta rooftops, ochre and pastel facades, window boxes overflowing with geraniums. This is a neighbourhood for wandering without a fixed agenda. Nerudova Street climbs steeply towards the castle, lined with Renaissance house signs, a golden chalice here, 3 violins there, a red eagle across the way. Each one identified a building before Prague had street numbers. Duck into any side alley and you'll find a courtyard cafe or a small gallery tucked behind heavy wooden doors. Café Savoy on Vltava Street near the river does an excellent Czech breakfast: eggs, smoked meats, fresh bread, strong coffee in a beautifully restored neo-Renaissance dining hall. Breakfast runs about 250 crowns. A woman at the next table, overhearing us planning the afternoon, leaned over. If you go anywhere outside Prague, go to Kutná Hora, the Bone Church. She said it like she was recommending a bakery. We nodded, filed it away, and kept walking uphill. The walk from Mala Strana up to Prague Castle takes about 15 minutes and a fair amount of vertical effort, although the views over your shoulder improve with every switchback. The complex at the top sprawls across the entire hilltop, technically the largest ancient castle complex in the world, though calling it a castle undersells the scope. It's more like a small fortified city: courtyards, gardens, palaces, a basilica, and at its heart the enormous St. Vitus Cathedral. The cathedral's Gothic spires are visible from nearly anywhere in Prague, and the interior delivers. Stained glass windows, including a celebrated one designed by Alphonse Mucha, pour coloured light across the nave on sunny mornings. The Golden Lane, a row of tiny, colourful cottages built into the castle wall, once housed castle marksman and later Franz Kafka's sister. The castle grounds themselves are free to enter. A basic circuit ticket for the interiors runs about 250 crowns. Tour groups peak between 10 and 2, so early morning or late afternoon gives you more room. The eastern battlements overlook all of Mala Strana's red rooftops and the river's slow curve. Rather than backtracking downhill, continue south along the ridge to Petrin Hill, a funicular railway, covered by your standard Prague transit pass, which is about 120 crowns for a full day, carries you up through apple orchards and gardens in 4 minutes flat. At the summit, there's a 60-metre observation tower, built in 1891 as a miniature version of the Eiffel Tower, a mirror maze that delivers genuine laughs for kids and anyone willing to play along, and the Strahov Monastery. Premonstratensian monks have lived here since 1143, nearly 900 years of unbroken presence. The monastery library consists of 2 baroque halls with frescoed ceilings, ancient globes and rows of leather-bound volumes that seem to glow in the afternoon light. You can only view the halls from the doorway, but even from there it stops you mid-step. And the monks brew their own beer next door at the Strahov Monastic Brewery. A half-litre of their amber lager on the terrace with the city laid out below, that is a Prague afternoon properly spent. The gardens on the hill are sprawling and free, and the walk down through them towards Újezd takes about 25 minutes, all downhill past rose gardens and quiet benches. From Újezd, the tram carries you across the river and up to Letná Park in about 10 minutes, the long green ridge running above the old town on the river's east bank. The park's main attraction is Letná Beer Garden, perched right on the bluff with an unobstructed panorama of the Vltava and all 7 of Prague's bridges fanning out below. A half-litre of Pilsner Urquell runs about 60 crowns, roughly $2.50. Locals spread across the grass with blankets and guitars as the sun gets low. Skateboarders work the concrete plaza near the giant metronome, a kinetic sculpture installed in 1991 on the granite pedestal where the world's largest Stalin statue once stood. It ticked over from totalitarianism to public art. The contrast is perfectly, specifically Prague. Heavy history carried lightly. Czech cuisine has a reputation for heaviness, and parts of it earn that honestly, in the most satisfying way imaginable. Žižkova na smetana, widely considered the national dish, is beef sirloin braised slow and served in a creamy root vegetable sauce with bread dumplings and a spoonful of tart cranberry jam on the side. The combination sounds improbable. It's magnificent. Locale Gloga, tucked into a long hall in the Old Town, serves a well-respected version alongside tank beer, unpasteurized lager pumped directly from the brewery, noticeably fresher than the bottled alternative. For deeper immersion in beer heritage, Ufleku has been brewing dark lager in the same new town courtyard since 1499, over 500 years of continuous operation. The courtyard seats several hundred, an oompa band plays most evenings, and the dark lager arrives whether you ordered it or not. A full Czech meal with beer in Prague rarely tops 300 crowns, which makes it one of the most affordable food cities in this part of Europe. On the street, skip the sugary tredelnik. Grilled klobasa sausages from any market stall near Wenceslas Square are the honest, local choice, smoky and snapping with flavour. A 20-minute walk east from the Old Town, or 2 stops on the tram, drops you into Žižkov, the neighbourhood that operates as Prague's unvarnished counterpart to the polished centre. The skyline here belongs to the Žižkov television tower, a Brutalist rocket ship from 1992, with 10 giant fiberglass baby sculptures by artist David Czerny crawling up its concrete pillars. It is deliberately unsettling, oddly endearing, and completely impossible to ignore. An elevator to the observation deck at 216 metres costs about 300 crowns and delivers panoramic views that refrain everything. The castle, Petrin's green slope, the river's long bend, all in new proportion. At street level, Žižkov holds pubs per square metre than anywhere in Prague. Beer and Stories on Takovské náměstí is a good entry point, small, unpretentious, pouring Czech microbrews that never reach the tourist centre. The neighbourhood loosens up after dark, and it's where you go when you want to drink like a local rather than a visitor. South of the centre, perched on a rocky bluff above the river, sits Vyšehrad, Prague's other fortress, older than its famous counterpart across the water and a fraction as visited. Legend holds that Princess Lebusha stood on these cliffs and prophesied the glory of Prague, pointing to the far bank where a man was carving a threshold, Prague in Czech, which may have given the city its name. The fortress grounds are free, green, and remarkably peaceful. The Basilica of St. Peter and Paul reveals a striking Art Nouveau interior, all gilded murals and painted vaults. The adjacent Vyšehrad cemetery holds the graves of Dvorak, Smeta, Mucha, and Čapek, a national pantheon in miniature. From the southern ramparts, the river bends below and the setting sun catches the castle complex across the water. It's a place where Prague's layers, mythological, national, personal, settle into something quiet. The cemetery here is atmospheric in its own right, but if you want to understand how far Bohemia's relationship with bones and burial goes, there's one more stop to make. An hour east of Prague by direct train from the main station, tickets run about 100 crowns each way, departures roughly every hour, the town of Kutná Hora once rivaled Prague itself in wealth and influence. The silver mines here bankrolled Bohemian kings for centuries. The town centre is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, anchored by the Italian court where royal coins were minted, and the Cathedral of St. Barbara, a Gothic masterpiece whose vaulted ceiling is covered in medieval frescoes of miners at work underground. The cathedral alone justifies the day trip, but most people come for what sits at the edge of town, and standing inside it, you understand why. In the 13th century, an abbot named Heidenreich returned from a pilgrimage to Jerusalem carrying a small pouch of soil from Golgotha, the hill where Christ was said to have been crucified. He scattered it across the cemetery at Sedlec, and word travelled fast. Suddenly, half of Central Europe wanted to be buried in this consecrated ground. Then the plagues came, then the Hussite wars. The cemetery swelled grotesquely beyond capacity. By the 15th century, the bones of roughly 40,000 people had to be exhumed to make room for the newly dead. They were stacked in the crypt of a small Gothic chapel and left there for 4 centuries. In 1870, a local woodcarver named František Rint was hired to organize the chaos. His solution was extraordinary. He bleached the bones white and arranged them into chandeliers, garlands, pyramids of skulls, a massive Schwarzenberg family coat of arms, and signed his own name in bones in the corner. The Sedlec Ossuary is small. You can walk through it in 15 or 20 minutes. Entry costs about 160 crowns. But standing beneath a chandelier that contains at least one of every bone in the human body, with femurs strung overhead like ornaments and skulls watching from every alcove, the scale of it shifts something inside you. a handful of dirt from Jerusalem carried in a leather pouch 800 years ago, and 40,000 people followed it into the ground. It's not macabre exactly. It's something closer to a strange, unflinching tenderness, a culture that refused to look away from death and found beauty in the looking. The train back to Prague takes an hour. You spend it watching sunflower fields pass the window, thinking about chandeliers. Prague works on you in layers. The Gothic spires and baroque facades catch your eye first. Then the food and the $2 beer pull you into the city's daily rhythms. And then the quieter places, Vyšehrad at dusk, Letná on a warm evening, a bone chapel to the east where 40,000 people found a strange kind of afterlife, reveal a culture that holds beauty and darkness in the same steady hand. One handful of soil, 800 years. That's Prague for you. Everything here outlasts what you'd expect. Like if this was interesting, hit the subscribe for more and turn that notification bell on.